Welcome back. This is Alex with the second installment of Paint.net using the color wheel, or just colors in general. This represents the second pillar in my series of how to make great pictures, and one of the most important pieces, how to understand it. Colors. All right, so let's get started. The first thing we need to do to get to our color menu is to open it from the upper right-hand corner here. And you'll see you can open it this way, or you can hit F8. But you'll open it up, and it'll immediately open and show you that you've got a primary color and a secondary color. And what that essentially means is that in certain tools that you're going to use, you might use both colors at the same time. If it's the case of the paintbrush, for example, when I click the left button, it uses my primary. When I click the right mouse button, it uses my secondary. So I can effectively paint with two colors at the same time, which is nice. Okay. If I want to change my primary or my secondary, left click on any color to change my primary, or right click on any color to change my secondary. I can also use this color wheel as well too, but this gets a little tricky because you're kind of sort of dead reckoning in a sea of color. It gets a little more difficult to match a specific color that you're looking for when you're using this thing. So there's a better way to do this, and I'll show you here momentarily. Now, it's important to note that with color, you have shading, which is adding black or making the color darker, okay? Tinting, which is adding white or making the color lighter, and then toning, which is adding gray, which kind of makes the color a paler version of itself, if you will, and to a certain degree. So we'll go into that as well too. Now, I like this. These presets are nice. It gives you a good variety of things to use, but it's not quite enough. You know, you're going to want to have specific colors that you're going to go after. You're going to need to really customize colors. And the way to do that is to hit this More button. It'll immediately open up the color palette and give you more options. This is important. One thing I'll say is, number one, you'll notice that you get a lot more presets, which is nice. You'll notice at the bottom, some of these presets have this little cross hatching on them. What this is basically telling you is that these colors are more transparent. If you notice over here, you've got this thing called opacity. This controls how clear a color is. So if I select a yellow, okay, and I draw, actually, I'm looking at the secondary. If I select a yellow for my primary, okay, there, I'll do that, okay? And then I select this blue over here that has these little cross hatches. When I go to cross over, you'll see that it's actually transparent, okay? So you can do a lot of different things that way. If you want to create shading, if you want to create, different sort of, designs, you have this opacity control. And I can also do this using this opacity meter. So let's say, for example, I like this color. I can just go like that. And I can make any color that I want more opaque by controlling this opacity. So whenever I do a custom color, if it's not one of these presets, that's how I would make that and get this effect, okay? So another nice feature about this program is the fact that you've got this ability to control shading and tinting and toning. And it's very important to be able to do this, because if you look at these preset colors, you only have really a few shades of each of these colors, which may not be enough if you're looking to do certain effects. So let me show you what I'm talking about exactly. When I do, if I want to show you a three-dimensional object, let's say, and I want to draw it so that it looks like it has a curvature to it, what I would typically want to do is I would want to shade it. So let's say, for example, this rectangle that I've just drawn here, and I'll get this out of the way. This rectangle that I've just drawn here, if I want to make it look sort of three-dimensional or rounded, I would probably have shading, and I'm assuming that the light source is right here in the middle because it's just easier to see it that way. I would assume that I have shading on this side and shading on that side. What's going to happen is I would have to let's say I'm going to make this a red square. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select the inside of it using the magic wand. I'm going to take my paintbrush. For the purposes of this exercise, let's just make this a little bigger. I'll make it 150. And I'm going to take my dark red, okay, and put it like this. It's kind of a brownish color, really, right? And then I'm going to go there. Then I'm going to take my other red, my main red, and I'm going to fill it in here, right? And then I'm going to take my light red, which is more or less a pink, and put it here, okay? Now, watch what happens. When I go to blend this all together to make this a smooth transition across so that this object looks kind of three-dimensional and rounded, and to do that, I'm going to use a Gaussian blur. Don't worry about this right now. We'll get into what a Gaussian blur is and how to use it in a later section, but for now, just for these purposes, just to show you, I use the Gaussian blur. You'll see what happens. It looks pretty good, but the problem is it doesn't really look like there's a smooth transition. It kind of looks like there's sort of like two blobs here. It doesn't give you that clean, rounded look. And the reason it does that is because you don't have enough colors to make the transition work, right? I've only got 3 colors here. I need about 5 or 6 colors to do it the right way, but I don't have 5 or 6 colors. I've only got 3. How do I fix that? Well, here's how. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is that, and I'll just undo these steps here. Okay, and I'm still selected on the inside of this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select my main color, red. Okay, I'm going to fill it. Then I'm going to select my red, and I'm going to take my paintbrush, and I'm going to use these controls right here. So bear in mind, when I do this, I've got my shading, which is marked here, and I've got my tinting, which is this one up here. In other words, when I go to shade, if I move this down, you'll notice the red in this primary square here gets darker and darker and darker. Eventually, if I go all the way down, it gets to black, okay? On the other hand, if I use this one, you'll see the primary color will get lighter and lighter and lighter and eventually go all the way to white, okay? So that's how we do that. Now watch. I'm gonna move this down to the dark section right here, and I'll make a line, and a line over here. Then I'm gonna take this, I'm gonna move it slightly up, and I'm gonna make a line. And I'll make another line here. And then I'm gonna move it up a little bit more. Do it again. You can see like that. Okay. And now I'm gonna leave, go all the way back to the red color. So now I've got my red and my red. And now I'm gonna use the tinting bar, and I'm gonna start making it lighter. And I tinted this color, whoops. I'm gonna leave the red in there, sorry. Okay, tint, tint, and I'm gonna keep moving it up. A little lighter, and then we're gonna go all the way up here to an almost white color. And then for good measure, I'm gonna shrink this down just a little bit. 85 is good. I'm gonna make it all the way white and make this a little bit less actually even than that. Let's go to 60 or 55, that's fine. And we'll run it down like that. Now you'll notice I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 colors that I'm using now as opposed to 3. Okay? So now watch what happens when I go to Gaussian blur. Now just this in and of itself looks pretty good. I mean, I could use this design for something if I wanted, but if I wanted to blur it, or with the Gaussian blur, I should say. You see? Now it's got a nice, clean, transitional look to it. It looks three-dimensional. It's much better. Okay? So it's super important that you control your colors using these as opposed to just using presets, because you can really make a difference in how your pictures look. Lastly, just a quick mention here is the fact that you've got these controls up here that I didn't really get into too much. But really what these are ways to control your colors, and change them and alter them. And you'll notice as I do this, as I slide these back and forth, the colors will change. You're controlling the hues, if you will. You'll also see that the color wheel will move, in lockstep as you do this. I usually don't use these. Generally speaking, the way I'll do it is I'll just pick one of these presets and then use the shading and the tinting and the opacity controls to kind of get what I need. Generally speaking, I can get there. Every now and then I might use this color wheel, but it's difficult to navigate it. The other thing I would mention is We talked about shading, which is adding black down here. We talked about tinting, which is adding white up here. Toning, which is adding gray, is done by using these two things in combination. So here we have red. If I want to tone it, the way I would do it, I would add equal amounts of white and equal amounts of black, okay? And you can see here. So I can control the exact number on the side here. So this is now a toned red. I've added gray, you see? Okay, that's really it. That's colors in a nutshell. Play around with this and see if you can get the colors that you exactly need. Do this exercise, try to create these lines using shading and tinting, and you're well on your way to creating really, really awesome pictures.